The gun was pressed against my temple. Cold metal. Steady hand. And all I could think was, this started because I was too drunk to text my ex properly. 3 hours ago, I was crying into a bottle of soju in my tiny Seoul apartment. Now I was on my knees in a warehouse, surrounded by men in expensive suits, while the most dangerous man in Korea decided whether I lived or died. His eyes were dark, unreadable, terrifying. And somehow, impossibly, I wasn't ready to die. Not yet. Not before I understood why he was looking at me like that. Like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve, a problem that didn't fit into his world of violence and power. Please, I whispered. I didn't mean to. I know exactly what you meant. His voice was silk over steel. That's what makes you dangerous. Welcome to Afro Love Stories. One of the best ways to support us in creating emotional, inspiring love stories is through your likes and subscriptions. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, like the video, and comment where you're watching from, and let me know what kind of story you'd love to hear next. Now, let me take you back to where this nightmare and this miracle began. 8 hours earlier, Flora Washington was having the worst day of her 27 years on this planet. First, her students at the Interracial school had staged a mini rebellion during English class. Then her mother called from Atlanta to remind her, again, that moving to Seoul for a teaching job was running away from her problems. And finally, Marcus had the audacity to post pictures with his new girlfriend. His new Korean girlfriend. The woman he'd clearly been seeing while they were still together. Flora sat cross-legged on her apartment floor, surrounded by empty takeout containers and a bottle of soju she'd bought from the convenience store downstairs. She wasn't much of a drinker, but tonight felt like an exception kind of night. Her best friend Jasmine's words echoed in her head from their video call earlier. Girl, you need to move on. Stop checking his social media, block him, delete his number, burn sage. Something. Sound advice. Except Flora had never been good at letting go. She poured another shot, the clear liquid burning down her throat. The room tilted pleasantly. Seoul's city lights twinkled outside her window. Beautiful. Foreign. Lonely. Her phone sat on the coffee table, Marcus's contact still there like a ghost she couldn't exorcise. Maybe Jasmine was right. Maybe she needed closure. Maybe she needed to tell him exactly what she thought of his lying, cheating, cowardly. Her fingers moved before her brain could stop them. I know you think you won. I know you think you broke me. But I want you to know something. I am done being small for men like you. I am done playing it safe. I am done pretending I don't know my worth. You were too weak to handle a woman like me, and that's on you. I hope she makes you happy, but we both know you'll cheat on her, too, because that's who you are, a coward, and I am so much better without you. She hit send with the righteous fury of 3 shots of soju and a broken heart. The message delivered. 1 checkmark, 2 checkmarks. Flora threw her phone across the room like it had bitten her. Her chest heaved with angry tears and liberation, and her phone buzzed. Then again, and again. Flora crawled across the floor. Her coordination wasn't what it used to be, and grabbed her phone. Her stomach dropped like an elevator with cut cables. The response wasn't from Marcus. You have the wrong number, but I'm fascinated by what kind of man inspires such passion. Tell me, brave stranger, does he know what he lost? Flora's blood turned cold. She clicked on the message thread, and her heart stopped completely. The number was different. Just 1 digit off. She'd texted a complete stranger her most vulnerable, angry, private thoughts. Her fingers shook as she typed, "Oh my God. I'm so sorry. This is mortifying. Please delete this and pretend it never happened. I meant to text my ex." The response was immediate. Why would I delete the most honest thing I've read in years? You sound like someone who's tired of being underestimated. I understand that feeling very well. This wasn't normal. Normal strangers laughed it off, maybe made a joke, then disappeared. This person was engaging, pursuing. And something about the formality of their language made Flora's skin prickle with warning. Look, I appreciate you being cool about this, but can we just not? No, just that. No explanation, no apology. Just a refusal that somehow felt more commanding than threatening. Excuse me? You don't want to forget this conversation. If you did, you would have blocked me already. But you're still here. Still curious. Still typing. So let's stop pretending either of us wants this to end. Flora should have blocked him right then. Should have thrown her phone in the Han River. Should have done literally anything except what she did next. Fine. Who are you? Someone who recognizes strength when he sees it, even through a wrong number text at midnight. That's not an answer. My name is Cherng Mao. And you are? Flora hesitated. Giving her name felt like opening a door she couldn't close, but the soju in her system and the loneliness in her chest made her reckless. Flora. Flora. Beautiful. It means flower, doesn't it? Strong women deserve strong names. Despite everything, the weirdness, the red flags, the absolute insanity of this situation, Flora felt something warm bloom in her chest. When was the last time someone had made her feel seen? You didn't answer my question. Who are you? And don't give me mysterious stranger vibes. It's too late for that. I'm a businessman. I run operations in Seoul, import, export, logistics. It's complicated and probably boring to most people. Everything's interesting at midnight when you're drunk and alone. Are you? Alone? Flora looked around her empty apartment. The silence answered before she could. Yeah. I moved here 6 months ago, teaching English. It's been harder than I thought. Making friends, feeling like I belong. Sometimes I think I made a huge mistake. You didn't. How would you know? Because strong people don't make mistakes. They make choices. And every choice leads somewhere necessary. You chose Seoul. Seoul chose you back. And now, accidentally, you've chosen me. I didn't choose anything. My drunk fingers slipped. Fate has a sense of humor like that. And somehow, impossibly, Flora found herself smiling, found herself settling back against her couch, phone cradled in her hands, talking to a stranger who made her feel less alone than she'd felt in months. They texted for 2 hours. He asked about her life, her dreams, her fears. She asked about Seoul, about his business, about what made someone cryptic by nature or by choice. His answers were always careful, revealing just enough to keep her hooked, but never quite satisfied. Then, at 2:47 a.m., everything shifted. I want to meet you. Flora's breath caught. What? No, we don't even know each other. But we do. I know you're strong enough to move across the world alone. I know you're brave enough to speak your truth even when it hurts. I know you're tired of being invisible to people who should have cherished you. That's more than most people know about anyone. That's not the same as knowing someone. Then let me know you better. Have coffee with me. Tomorrow. I don't even know what you look like. You could be anyone. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then her phone buzzed with an image. Flora's hand flew to her mouth. It was a photo of her apartment building. Taken from the street. Taken recently, because she could see her living room light still on. The same light currently glowing above her head. Terror shot through her body like ice water. What the hell is this? Are you outside? Are you watching me right now? Don't be afraid. I needed to know you were real. That this connection wasn't just pixels and loneliness. You're real, Flora. More real than anything in my life has been for a very long time. Flora ran to her window, yanking the curtain aside with shaking hands. The street below was empty except for a single black car parked under a streetlight. As she watched, the car's headlights flashed once. Twice. This isn't romantic. This is terrifying. You need to leave. Now. I will. After you hear me out. I'm not a stalker or a monster. But I am someone who recognized something rare the moment I saw your words. And in my position, rare things don't come along often. When they do, I don't let them slip away. Your position? What does that mean? Meet me. Let me explain who I am and why I had to see you. If you want me gone after that, I'll disappear. You'll never hear from me again. You have my word. The word of someone who's stalking me? The word of someone who sees something worth risking everything for. Flora's hands were shaking so badly she could barely type. Every rational brain cell was screaming at her to call the police, block the number, maybe call the U.S. Embassy for good measure. But underneath the fear was something else. Curiosity. That same reckless part of her that had moved to Seoul, that had sent that angry text, that was tired, so tired, of playing it safe. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., the Starbucks in Gangnam, the busy one. And if you're 1 second late, I'm gone. I'll be there at 2:55. And Cherng Mao? If this is some kind of trick, if you're dangerous, I have friends who will hunt you down. I am dangerous, but never to you. Flora didn't sleep. She spent the night pacing, texting Jasmine everything and Googling what to do if you're being stalked in Korea. Jasmine's response was immediate and loud, even through text. Girl, no, absolutely not. This is how people end up on true crime podcasts. I'll be in public. You can track my location. I just need to know who he is. You need to know if you've lost your damn mind. Because yes, you have. But despite Jasmine's protests, despite her own terror, Flora couldn't shake the feeling that walking away meant missing something important. Something that might never come again. The next morning, she dressed carefully. Not too nice. She wasn't trying to impress him, but not too casual either. She needed armor, and in Flora's world, armor looked like her favorite jeans, ankle boots, and the leather jacket that made her feel invincible. She arrived at the Starbucks at 2:45, found a table with a clear view of the entrance and both exits, ordered a coffee she didn't want, sent her location to Jasmine, her coworker Michelle, and her mother, who would absolutely freak out later, but at least someone would know where to find her body. At 2:54, the door opened. Flora forgot how to breathe. Cherng Mao was beautiful in a way that was almost offensive. Tall, with sharp features and perfectly styled black hair. He wore all black, expensive black, the kind that screamed money and power. But it was his eyes that stopped her heart. Dark, intelligent, and fixed on her with an intensity that made her feel completely exposed. He crossed the coffee shop with measured steps. Every person he passed seemed to sense something about him, leaning away instinctively. When he reached her table, he bowed slightly, formally, respectfully. Flora, thank you for meeting me. His voice was different in person, deeper, accented but perfect. The kind of voice that could order someone's death as easily as order coffee. Cherng Mao. She was proud her voice didn't shake. Sit. And start explaining before I change my mind. He sat with fluid grace, folding his hands on the table between them. Up close, she could see scars on his knuckles. Old scars, fighting scars. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. And I need you to listen completely before you run. I'm listening. I'm not a businessman, not in the traditional sense. He paused, his jaw tightening. I run the Cheongryong, the Blue Dragon Syndicate, Korean organized crime, What you would call the mafia. Flora's coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth. You're joking. I wish I was. You're a gangster, a criminal. Yes. And you thought this was a good opening line for a coffee date? Despite everything, a smile ghosted across his lips. I promised honesty. I don't make promises I can't keep. Flora should have run, should have screamed, should have done anything except what she did, which was lean back in her chair and study him like a specimen. Okay. Let's say I believe you. Why tell me? Why not just pretend to be a normal guy? Because you deserve the truth. And because if we continued talking, you would eventually discover who I am? I'd rather you hear it from me first. How thoughtful. A mob boss with manners. My father taught me that power without courtesy is just brutality, and I've had enough brutality for several lifetimes. There was something in his voice. Pain, exhaustion, a weariness that spoke of things Flora couldn't imagine. Why me? She asked softly. Out of everyone in Seoul, why track down the girl who sent you a drunk text? Cherng Mao was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw. Because everyone in my life is terrified of me. They tell me what I want to hear. They perform. They lie. But you didn't know who I was. You just were. Honest. Angry. Real. Do you understand how long it's been since someone was real with me? That's sad. It's my life. He leaned forward slightly. Flora, I'm not asking you to understand my world. I'm not asking you to accept it. I'm just asking for a chance to know you. The woman brave enough to move across the world, brave enough to speak her truth, brave enough to meet a stranger who might be dangerous. Might be? You just told me you're in the Korean Mafia. I'm dangerous to my enemies, to people who threaten what's mine. But you? His eyes softened in a way that transformed his entire face. I would burn my entire empire before I let anyone hurt you. Flora's heart did something complicated. You don't even know me. Then let me. He pulled out his phone, slid it across the table. This is me. No guards, no weapons. Just a man asking for dinner. One meal. If you hate it, I walk away. You never hear from me again. Flora looked at the phone, then at him, then at the door where freedom and safety waited. This is insane. Completely. I should leave. You absolutely should. But I'm not going to. That smile again. No. I don't think you are. The restaurant was hidden in Itaewon, down an alley Flora would never have found on her own. The owner greeted Cherng Mao with a deep bow and rapid Korean that sounded like prayers. They were led to a private room with traditional floor seating and a low table, already set with banchan. They're terrified of you, Flora observed as they sat. They're terrified of what I represent, the organization, the consequences. Does that ever bother you? Every day. He poured her tea with careful precision. But it keeps them safe. Fear is protection in my world. What a lonely way to live. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, that she understood. They talked for hours. He told her about growing up in the organization, about his father who had built an empire on blood and loyalty, about inheriting a throne he never wanted but couldn't refuse. He spoke about the violence with clinical detachment, but Flora could hear the cost in every word. Why stay? She asked. If you hate it, why not leave? Because 300 families depend on our organization for their livelihoods, because the alternative is chaos and war, because some cages are too big to escape. That's tragic. It's reality. He refilled her tea. But then you sent that text, and for a few hours I got to be just a man. Not a boss, not a legacy, just someone talking to someone else. Do you know how rare that is? Flora set down her cup. I'm a teacher, Cherng Mao. I teach kids about Shakespeare and grammar. You're telling me you run a criminal empire. How is this supposed to work? I don't know. But I know that when I read your words, I felt something I haven't felt in 10 years. Hope. The possibility that life could be different. That I could be different. You can't change for me. That's not fair to either of us. I'm not changing for you. His eyes held hers. I'm changing for me. Because you reminded me I could be more than what my father made me, that there's a version of my life that doesn't end in blood. Before Flora could respond, the door exploded inward. Men in suits, guns drawn, shouting in Korean. Everything happened so fast Flora's brain couldn't process it. Cherng Mao moved like liquid, flipping the table and pulling her behind it in one motion. His body covered hers, one hand cradling her head, the other reaching for something at his back. Gunshots. So loud Flora felt them in her bones. More shouting. Then sudden, terrifying silence. When Flora dared to look, 3 men lay motionless on the floor. And Cherng Mao was standing over them, gun in hand, his expression cold and empty. This wasn't the man who'd poured her tea. This was someone else entirely. Someone terrifying. His phone rang. He answered in rapid Korean, his voice sharp and commanding. Then slowly, his expression softened. He put the gun away and turned to her. Are you hurt? Flora couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't process that she'd almost died, that he'd killed people, that this was real. Flora. He knelt beside her, his hands infinitely gentle as they cupped her face. Look at me. Are you hurt? She shook her head. Good. We need to leave, now. They ended up in a penthouse apartment in Gangnam, floor to ceiling, windows, minimalist furniture, the kind of place that cost more than Flora would make in her entire teaching career. Cherng Mao wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, brought her water she couldn't drink, sat beside her on the couch, not touching but close enough that she could feel his warmth. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I never should have taken you there. I thought it was safe. I was wrong. You killed them. Flora's voice sounded hollow. 3 people, just dead. They would have killed you. Killed us both. They were from a rival organization, the Viper clan. They've been looking for weaknesses. And they saw you with me. So, this is my fault? No. His voice was fierce. This is mine. I brought you into my world. I put you in danger. And I will spend every moment making sure you're safe. Flora looked at him. Really looked at him. The blood on his shirt. The exhaustion in his eyes. The careful way he held himself, like he was afraid of scaring her more than he already had. You could have run, she whispered. When the shooting started. You could have saved yourself. Not an option. Why? Because the moment I read your text, something changed in me. And when those bullets started flying, my only thought was keeping you alive. Not my business, not my reputation, not my own life, just you. And I've known you for less than 2 days. That should be impossible. Flora's eyes filled with tears. This is insane. I should call the police. I should leave and never look back. You should. But I don't want to. His eyes widened slightly. What? Tonight was the most terrified I've ever been. But also the most alive. You're dangerous and complicated and everything I shouldn't want. But Cherng Mao, when you covered me without thinking, when you looked at me after like my life mattered more than your own. She touched his cheek, her hand trembling. I've never had anyone look at me like that. He caught her hand, pressing it against his face. I can't promise you safety. I can't promise you normal. But I can promise I will do everything in my power to be worthy of this, of you, and that however long you'll have me, I will choose you, every single time. Flora leaned forward, slowly, giving him time to pull away. But he didn't move, didn't breathe, just watched her with those impossibly dark eyes, When their lips met, it felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff at the same time. The next 3 weeks were the strangest of Flora's life. Cherng Mao kept her safe with security she barely noticed. He called every day, sometimes just to hear her voice. He sent flowers to her school with notes that made her students giggle and Michelle raise knowing eyebrows. And slowly, carefully, he started making changes, restructuring his organization, delegating the violent operations, pulling back from the front lines. It wasn't easy. There were challenges from within, threats from rivals who saw his transformation as weakness. But every time things got difficult, Flora was there, not to fix him or change him, but to remind him why he was doing this, to show him there was something worth fighting for beyond power. One night they sat on his penthouse balcony, Seoul glittering below them like scattered diamonds. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "That drunk text?" Flora thought about the fear and the danger and the impossibility of their situation, but she also thought about the way he looked at her, the way he'd changed his entire life for a chance at something real. "Not even for a second," she said. He kissed her then, soft and sweet, and Flora thought about how strange life was. How one moment of drunk courage, one wrong number, one impossible choice could lead to this. To love in the most unexpected place, with the most unexpected person. All because she'd been brave enough to say yes to something terrifying. And sometimes that's what love required. Not safety, not certainty, just courage.